Yes, you are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. And today is Monday, the 18th of August, 2025. And we are locked, loaded, and ready for launch, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really excited because in the next hour, Buck is already here. That's Chief to me, but Buck Torsk is already here, retired U.S. Navy Chief. We're going to talk to him next hour from Jones County. Got a lot of really interesting insights about doing stuff locally. And I just thought it was a great idea to have him come into the studio. And he drove all the way out, and it's going to be a great interview. But in the meantime, we are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming on that social media platform that begins with a F, but we don't like saying the name. And of course, we are streaming at WYAB.com, the mothership, always streaming there. Look, if you want to be part of the program this hour, the number is 601 879 0002. The text line is open, and the texts were lit this weekend. Just there were so many news stories out there, and I'm always very appreciative to all the texts that listeners send to me. I don't always answer each one. I apologize for that, but don't think that I'm not reading it. I definitely am, and I'm grateful and thankful for all of that. And the text line, if you want to be part of that, is 601 879 5060. Know this, my brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to hear and listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. That's the book of James 1:9. And today, that's what I want to focus on. The whole show is going to be focusing on listening, quick to listening, quick to hear, and not necessarily pontificating so much. Although here on WYB, we do pontificate for a living. But it's important that we listen to what others are saying to form our opinions, because otherwise we're going down a road that's just not going to end up being good for all of us. And my weekend kicked off great. I've been either inactive, active duty, or retired since 1989. And I've seen a lot of flyovers, fam. I have seen a lot of flyovers, but I have never seen such a flyover that Trump put together when he was entertaining President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. To have the president of Russia walk out on a red carpet being in a guard of honor, for lack of a better word, of F-22 Raptors and Apache helicopters, that was awesome in and of itself. With the fog and Air Force One in the background, even more epic. But to have that flyover of that B-2 Spirit and those 4 F-35s, and let me tell you something about that. This isn't like your Blue Angels or your Thunderbirds, formation flying like that. That's, first of all, dissimilar aircraft. So there's already a little bit of coordination that is going to have to take place well before this happens. The B-2 is coming out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, so that's going to be a good 6-hour trot. And he's going to have to, or she, whoever was piloting it, is going to have to coordinate with those F-35Cs. Don't know where they were out of. Don't really care. What I want to talk about is the airmanship and coordination between those 5 airplanes to fly over perfectly. I mean, it would hit at the exact perfect time. You could tell Trump knew it was coming. He was smiling. And Vlad just kind of looked at me like, that's a B-2 and 4 F-35s, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of Raptors. Do you think the message of diplomacy was being sent? Absolutely. Peace through strength. Ronald Reagan was smiling down. It was the greatest flyover I have ever seen. And I've seen some good ones, man. Saw F-22, F-15, A-10, P-51. That was an honor flight. That was pretty epic. I've seen a B-29. I've seen a lot of different ones, and I'm telling you what, that set the weekend off great. It really fired up all the libs, And we can call them that because anything good for the United States and President Trump means it's bad for the libs, and so they have to trash it and poo-poo it. But it's almost like you've got this kid at the supermarket who's throwing a fit in the store, and everybody's just ignoring him, and he's getting mad that no one's ignoring him. So they'll do something even more crazy and more stupid, and that's just all the mainstream media is. They're just a bunch of petulant children, and we need to continue to treat them as such, much like Marco Rubio did all this weekend on the talk shows. I really loved what he did with that woman on CBS and just completely swatted her down as she so justly deserved. I guess the big breaking story that was happening just as we were about to come on the air, and I love this about the show, is I feel like the 10 to noon time slot here for me was really good. MSNBC is changing their name. And this is really critical because we've documented it on the show time and time again how the ratings continue to fall. The only time it doesn't fall is when Rachel Maddow is on that Monday night. They will get an okay slot. They don't win the ratings war that night on Monday night, but they get a higher percentage. And so they are now going to completely rename MSNBC. NBC does not want anything to do with MSNBC, so they're divesting it. They're going to spin it off and then sell it off, and that's going to be a great thing because it's going to be another piece of the legacy media that's dying off. And quite frankly, the sooner they die off, the better. I genuinely believe that with what the mainstream media is now reporting, it's doing the nation so much more harm than good. It's not to say that they shouldn't have a free voice, but they shouldn't be amplified like they are. And to be changing from from MSNBC to MS Now is really a sign of the things to come. I think CNN is next. I think you're going to see massive layoffs at CBS, especially as Paramount continues its succeeding power to Skydance. You're going to see that newsroom change, and it's going to be a good thing. There are so many more news outlets out there for us to consume from. I'll be very truthful with you. I told you last month that in August we're going to have a new news source, and I use Ground News for a lot of the stuff. I go get a story; it gives me all the different websites and news agencies that are reporting it. Ground News does an independent check to see whether they lean left, center, or right. And it allows me to give you, the listener at WYAB, whether you're listening over the airwaves or online, appreciate it if you're listening online. If you wouldn't mind liking the stream and retweeting it out there and giving me a follow at Andrew Gasser, AndrewGasser on X, that would be awesome. But it gives me a much better way for me to go ahead and correlate and aggregate news to share with you. And I want to share news stories that not just affect the nation, but affect us here in Mississippi. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of really good news sources out there that you would never know about if you just stuck to the traditional news media. Some of us remember having our own aggregation system where we go on and have, whether it be Google Alerts or some other type of aggregation system. And as we continue to walk down this journey together, it's going to see that we have more and more good sources of news, and you don't necessarily need that CBS or that NBC or that CNN. Another big story coming out of Magnolia Tribune, Jeremy Pittari. 12 states are restricting junk food purchases from SNAP and EBT cards. Mississippi could be next. And this is where I think Mississippi is right where it needs to be. And people are going to say, Andrew, Mississippi needs to be on the front foot of this. I agree. I would like Mississippi to be on the front foot of this in every major aspect of policy. It shouldn't be a problem to be passed in Mississippi, but you simply can't lead them all. And if we take the lead on the Dobbs decision and Roe versus Wade, and then we take a back seat to some of this other stuff, hey, I'm okay with that. So let's read what Mississippi Today say Mississippi may become the next state in the nation to enact food restriction waivers on supplemental nutrition assistance program or SNAP benefits. And a dozen states have already put plans in motion to start restricting things labeled as quote unquote junk food, which includes snacks, candy, and sodas. I think this is a great thing. I think the more we start pushing people towards positive food solutions, the better. If you want to go out and live off of Snickers bars and Cokes, and you can afford to pay that without using taxpayer dollars, that's great, and you should do that. But if you are using government assistance, well, then we should have a little bit more of a say in what you're purchasing and buying. In some states, such as Nebraska, Louisiana, and Florida, the restrictions will include energy drinks. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine using your EBT card or your SNAP card to go get your morning Monster or Red Bull, and all of a sudden that thing comes back declined? Man, there's going to be some anger. But it's coming. That's why we're talking about it. You're hearing it here first. With Mississippi having one of the highest rates of obesity in the country, lawmakers could soon implement similar SNAP restrictions. I hope so. Governor Reeves is out there talking about it. And the more that we start having some of these common sense reforms starting to come in to Mississippi, the better off it's going to be. And it takes time. In the next segment, hopefully we're going to talk about education and pro-choice versus pro-choice for school choice, and then, keeping people regulated within their public school districts. I think there's going to be some real big reforms coming out of there. And I do believe that what I'm calling the Clay Edwards side is starting to gain a little bit of traction out there. I had a discussion this weekend at church, and they were talking about, hey, Andy, we live out here in Brandon. We're all about having school choice, but we want our public schools to remain intact. And that is a real concern that is definitely not being dismissed by our lawmakers in and around Mississippi. I think it's a great thing. You want to send your kid to a private school, someone like our family who sends our daughter to a private school, we pay for that completely out of pocket. And we also pay public school tuition. And you want to know what? If we could take our public school contribution and apply that to our daughter's private school education, I think that would be great. And the other side of this too, which was actually quite interesting, people talking who have never had kids or their kids are already graduated, why are they paying for it? Well, that's something that we agreed to when we agreed that every school child in America should have a chance at public school. If you get rid of that, you would see a complete change in the American way of life, and we're just always going to have that public school deduction until like an monumental earthquake of a change happens in Mississippi and around America. But I don't think that's coming anytime soon. Look, we're off and running on the Andrew Gosser Show. We talked about the Flyover. We talked about MSNBC changing its name to MS Now. It's going to be a spectacular failure, and we can't wait to chronicle it here at the Andrew Gosser Show. And we talked about SNAP and EBT getting ready to change. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be all right, everybody. Take care. Breathe in. Breathe out. Arsenal won 1-0 against Manchester United. We're off and running on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Cabinets, inside and outside. Using high-quality products, Elite Custom Construction specializes in cabinetry and intricate millwork. Established in 2011, licensed and insured, Elite Custom Construction is your solution to your next project. Call Stephen at 601-927-0552 or visit them online at elitecustomconstruction.net.
Hi, this is Lee Atkins of Home Care Plus in Ridgeland. We are a proud carrier of Abena Premium Incontinence products. Abena has the most absorbency available, making changes and leaks less likely. After 7 years as a seller, I can tell you these products are amazing and worth every penny to quality of life for patient and caregiver. And we ship all incontinence products as well. So please come see us at Home Care Plus in Ridgeland for all the incontinence needs of you or your family member. That's Home Care Plus in Ridgeland.
You can show your pride and patriotism in honor of the 250th birthday of this great nation by proudly flying a flag. And a complete flag source on I-55 in Jackson is the place to find it. All sizes for all purposes. And they have the official 250-year celebration flag. Have a look at CompleteFlags.com. That's CompleteFlags.com.
Antique Mall of the South has 14,000 square feet of pristine, clean floor space. Home to beautiful, timeless antique treasures. Antique Mall of the South is open Monday to Saturday, 10 to 5. Check them out online at antiquemallofthesouth.com or go to the Antique Mall of the South Facebook page. You can also read the dozens of 5-star reviews online. Come see for yourself at Antique Mall of the South in Ridgeland. Now open Monday to Saturday, 10 to 5. That's Antique Mall of the South, Highway 51 in Ridgeland.
Hi, everyone. This is Matt Wisłowski, owner and general manager of 1039 WYAB. How much money does the state of Mississippi spend on advertising? A little over $10 million each and every year. Apparently, some people think that it's vitally important for the state of Mississippi to promote the Memorial Stadium, the Department of Marine Resources, soybean and rice products, MDOT, the State Fair, and the worst category of all, miscellaneous advertising expenditures for who knows what. And who pays for it all? In most cases, you, the taxpayer. I find that absolutely abhorrent. That's why 1039 WYAB refuses to accept advertising dollars from state government agencies. If you ever do hear a state agency advertising on WYAB, we're not getting paid for it. We stay on the air due to the support of the many businesses that you hear advertising every day on 1039 WYAB. So I only ask that you please tell our advertisers that you appreciate their support of 1039 WYAB. And keep listening.
Here's a tip for buyers from RE/MAX Connection real estate agent Risa Jensen.
Buyers need to be ready. Start your mortgage process if you're not paying cash and your mortgage. You need to go ahead and start that before you ever go look at a house. You walk into a house and you fall in love with it, and that's the one you want. And you've not even started the process, and there may be multiple bids on it, and other people are sending pre-qualifying letters with their offers, then you're dead in the water. You offer what you are willing to pay for this property, and know that if you don't get it, you're okay with that, and you can walk away.
RitaJensen.net.
Americans for Prosperity is Mississippi's and the country's leading grassroots organization dedicated to promoting economic freedom and personal liberty. Americans for Prosperity advocates for limited government, free market policies, and empowering individuals. When given freedom and opportunity, Americans are capable of extraordinary things. If you are ready to make a difference in our community and want to get involved, then visit AmericansForProsperity.org. Be a part of positive change at AmericansForProsperity.org. Paid for by Americans for Prosperity.
Oh, yeah. We are back, moving and grooving on the Andrew Gosser Show, 103.9 WYAB. This segment is brought to you by iGear Optical in Pearl, Mississippi, located at 2630 Highway 80. Bruce Bennett is the owner there. He's at iGear Optical for all of your glassware and vision needs. Go ahead and check them out. They're open Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Bruce, we always appreciate your support. And the next place I want to roll to is this bust, this child trafficking bust, where they apprehended 8 individuals in Nevada for trying to hook up with a minor. But the one thing that just seems to be flying underneath the radar is one of these people was an Israeli national, part of the Israeli government. Israeli Cyber Directorate employee arrested in the United States on suspicion of pedophilia. And I'll just read the pull quote. A senior official at the cyber directorate in the Prime Minister's office was arrested on suspicion of links to pedophilia. A joint operation by Las Vegas and police and the FBI over the past 2 weeks led to the arrest of 8 suspects, including Alexandrovich, 38, from Israel. If I mispronounced his name, I'm sorry, but that, you know me and names. After questioning, Alexandrovich returned to Israel and was placed on leave from the directorate. That makes you kind of wonder. And everybody says, "Oh, I'm soft on Israel. I'm one way." Look, child trafficking is child trafficking. I don't care where you're from. But what makes this worse? What crime is worse? Trying to go ahead and link up with the underage person for a sex act, or a Palestinian American jailed for throwing rocks in Israel. And that's just the truth of the matter is, you've got a 15-year-old American has been held in an Israeli prison for 6 months for allegedly throwing a rock. Now, I'm not going to be the first one to sit here to make excuses for the Palestinian protests. I think they're outrageous. If you just saw what happened this weekend in New York, the pro-Palestinian movement rushed the 9/11 memorial and started shouting a bunch of craziness that we should never have to endure here in America, especially at the 9/11 memorial. But we're there, and these Palestinian protesters, that's just their modus operandi. That's what we're dealing with. But I ask, what is quote unquote fair and what is relevant? Throwing a rock, 6 months in jail. This guy, and look, you had Las Vegas police involved. You had Nevada Bureau of Investigation involved. You had the FBI involved. It's not like this was a weak case. And those 8 individuals were all brought in for questioning and given bond. And the international diplomatic community, the other guy gets to go back to Israel, where he's going to get a spank on the wrist and continue on with his life. You'd like that deal you wouldn't like that deal, actually, because you wouldn't put yourself in that position in the first place. But that's just the deals that are given out there. And I bring this up because these are the type of things that are happening over and over and over again. And every chance that I get to point it out, I'm gonna. Just like this next story. Illegal immigrant. I read the wrong one. Truck driver arrested after 3 from South Florida killed in illegal U-turn crash on Turnpike. And the thing about this is that you might have heard about it. He's actually caught on camera. It's some of the tougher video that I've had to watch. But basically what happened was an illegal immigrant got his commercial driver's license in California, running around America, driving a truck. Lord only knows what he's doing. But he made an illegal U-turn, and a passenger van smashed right into him as he was, those U-turn spots where it says for authorized use only, authorized vehicles only, your highway patrolmen, state troopers, sheriff's department, emergency vehicles, they're supposed to use that. Nope, this guy decided he was going to use his 18-wheeler to go through that. And the look on this dude's face, it's truly soulless. According to reports, the minivan was unable to avoid the semi-tractor trailer as it crossed over the northbound travel lanes to make a U-turn on the access road. The minivan crashed into the trailer and became jammed beneath its left side. It's absolutely horrible. And this is why we're doing the things we're doing with immigration and ICE. That's why President Trump has activated the National Guard. And we send out a special prayer to all of our guardsmen who are going and heading to D.C. I know one of them. They're on their way to D.C. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the mainstream media plays this versus the people in Washington, D.C. play this. Because I spent probably a good 45 minutes of my life that I'll never get back scrolling through TikTok, trying to find some TikToks that were good enough that I could actually play on the air, even if I had to quack them out, and block some. But people are genuinely happy that President Trump is trying to take back the streets of D.C. And you have the liberal left wringing their hands, washing their hands. Oh my goodness. Trump is sending in the federal police. Trump is sending in ICE. Trump is sending in the National Guard. People are turning up real quick. What was really shocking to me was the one guy, and I thought I saved this, but I didn't. But he noticed the distinct lack of the smell of weed in the air. Drugs are bad for you, okay? And we're sitting there going down that road. And the amazing thing is despite the left continuing to shove drugs, transgenderism, do what you want as long as it feels good, it's okay. All of this hot garbage down our kids' throat. They are changing their ways. They are changing their tune. And it's going to only incite the left more to do more outrageous and outlandish things so that they can get attention. And it's only going to reinforce the conservative values that, hey, maybe our traditional Christian values that this country was founded upon are a good thing. I think there's a lot to be said about some of the people who carry their quote-unquote Christianity around. They've definitely let down, and just like we all have. But we have to humble ourselves daily, dust ourselves up, ask for forgiveness, and continue to move on. And when we get back, we're going to have my favorite CNN pollster. He came out with some interesting stuff, and I want to play them because it proves the point that even though all the stuff we reported on in the first two segments was absolute madness, craziness, there are still good things that are coming out. And I think we're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. It's just going to be a long walk back. But that's all right because we're used to that. We're here from Mississippi, and we enjoy long walks in the hot Mississippi summer where the humidity is a bazillion percent. You're listening to Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. 9 WYAB. We will be right back.
Keep it tuned here to 103.9 WYAB.
Fox News commentary.
Gavin Newsom, with the help of his press office account, will end his chances of ever becoming president. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
You think your 401k is safe, growing, reliable. But here's the truth. The 401k was never designed to make you wealthy. It was built to shift risk onto you, leaving your retirement exposed to Wall Street crashes, inflation, and chaos. Noble Gold helps Americans roll over part of their 401k into real physical gold. Tax advantage, penalty-free, and shockproof. Get your free wealth protection kit now at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Gavin Newsom really wants to be president. I don't know if you could tell. And there was a time I cautioned my fellow conservatives not to underestimate Gavin. He's a slick talker, has all the makings of a snake in the grass. But I was wrong. Let's go ahead and cross him off the list of Democrats to keep an eye on because he's embarrassed himself to such a degree on social media. He better hope the wine business can sustain him after his reign as California's worst governor in history comes to an end. Between his personal X account and the Gavin Newsom press office account, he has no shot at winning anything. And with all the problems in California, the homelessness, bullet train to nowhere, the population leaving for better states, the gas prices, and the fire-ravaged areas wherein people still cannot rebuild their homes, Gavin and his press office are more concerned with posting on X and, of course, doing podcasts. Gavin and his press team are the literal definition of the word ick. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
It's no secret the Honda and Acura vehicles are some of the best built and most popular vehicles in America. Both Clinton Body Shops are ProFirst certified to repair your Honda or Acura to the high standard of safety and appearance your car was designed to meet. Visit collision.honda.com and watch the videos that explain why it's so important to choose a body shop certified by North American Honda. In Clinton or in Richland, choose Clinton Body Shop. We work for you. We take pride in perfection. You had an accident. Now you're here in Aftermarket Parts, Insurance Company Preferred, and a lot of other noise that serves to confuse you. Call Clinton Body Shop. We'll keep it simple. We are certified by 19 vehicle makers to assure you get a proper repair. We care about your investment and your safety. Call the shop who only wants one partner in the repair process, and that's you, the owner. In Clinton and in Richland, we work for you. We take pride in perfection.
Here's a word from John White, the owner of Two Gun Tactical in Flowood and Ridgeland.
I carry a gun every day, all the time. Last year in America, 2 million legal guns were pulled, and it stopped the threat. So I'm really wearing a firearm just to stop the threat. There's more likelihood of me just pulling it and not using it than there is using it. TwoGunTactical.com, TwoGunTactical.com.
Two Gun Tactical, the South's only country club.
Come check us out at Planter Supply in the heart of downtown Bentonia. Not only are we here to cover all of your food plot needs, but you will find that we are fully stocked with a variety of ammo. While you're here, grab a pair of grub boots. Whether you're hunting or tending to livestock, we have the perfect grub boot for you. We have quite the selection of food for all of your livestock needs. Your pet's health is important to us as well. We have a wide array of animal health products as well as pet food and accessories. Come check us out or give us a call at 662-755-8782. Planter Supply in the heart of downtown Bentonia.
Have you been injured through no fault of your own? Do you know your rights? Don Evans does. Do you really believe that the insurance company would disclose all information to you? Don Evans will make sure that you are fully informed. It costs nothing to discuss your case. From car wrecks to malpractice, Don Evans will make you and your family whole again. Don Evans won't ever charge unless he collects for you. Call Don for a free no-obligation consultation at 601-969-2006.
And we are back on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. The phone-in number is 601-879-0002. The text line is 601-879-5060. And I want to get right into this video from Henry Enton. I know he's CNN, but he's got a delivery style and a way of making a point that I think is important that we can expound upon. And what I really think is happening as this guy continues to report the numbers, and I know he'll always say he's just reporting the numbers, but he's creating a timeline that is showing that the Americans, especially the youth in America, are shifting to the right. And this is in a way that is quite shocking to me. So with that, let's go ahead and hit it.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness gracious, this is a huge...
My goodness gracious. I just want to say for the fact I was saying my goodness gracious long before Harry Enton was even around.
Huge decline. Americans who drink alcohol, we are looking at the lowest level since the 1930s. What are we talking about? Just 54% on occasion Americans say that they drink alcohol. That's down from 4 points last year. That's down from 62% in 2023. And it is way down from the record high the last year that happened when it was 71% back in 19...
Man, we were hitting the bottle hard back in the 70s. I was only, 6 years old in 78. We were hitting the bottle hard. And I'm not saying drinking is a bad thing. Who doesn't occasionally enjoy a nice glass of wine or a beer? Most, I'd say most Americans do. But we also know that there's a serious alcoholism problem in America. That it's definitely been glorified in movies and in culture. I know in high school, my gosh, Cary Grove High School, we definitely had some craziness going on there. But it's refreshing to me to see that the culture is moving away from from it. I'm not saying it's going to ever go down to like 10 or 0. That'd be silly or foolish. But the more we realize that it's not necessarily something that we need to have, it's a great thing. It gets better.
178. This record low is being driven by younger folks and Republicans as well, as they increasingly view the idea of drinking as an unhealthy habit.
Yep. I know we can't buy alcohol with SNAP and EBT, but it's interesting.
The poll also asked about smoking. What does that show?
Yeah, same exact idea. It turns out we're giving up our vices a little bit. What are we talking about? Smoked a cigarette in the last week. Look at this. In 2025, just 11%. A decade ago, it was 19%. 2 decades ago, 25%. You look back 1974, about 50 years ago, it was 40%. What is that? That's 1/4 the level.
Think about that for a minute. From 1974, 40%, 4 in 10 Americans were smoking. Now it's 1 in 10
My
Americans.
goodness gracious. And again, younger folks are the ones who are saying that they are smoking less. And even when you combine in e-cigarettes, we're still looking at considerably lower levels than we have in past decades.
And people watching are also going to see this tab. And are you?
And the other thing is this includes vaping and cigarettes, cigars, that kind of thing. It did. I'm quite certain it didn't include marijuana, because that use is really big. Now this next part of the segment, I'm going to choose not to play, but it talks about premarital sex, and the truth of the matter is that well, let me back up a second. Going back to the smoking, think about it. The tax revenue that we were getting off of taxing tobacco for healthcare. Remember that in the 90s, the big deal, taxing cigarettes, raising the cost of cigarettes to pay for healthcare. Well, if less and less people are smoking, that means the revenue's going down. That money's going to have to be made somewhere. And I think that is something that is not necessarily being talked about with these numbers that should be talked about. If you had 4 in 10 Americans paying, let's just say $1 per pack, and now you've lost 3 of those dollars, that's 75% reduction. That's a lot of stinking money to provide a lot of medical benefits for people who can't afford it. But the next part talks about premarital sex, and I thought Henry did a good job, but the CNN info babe just killed it for me, and I don't feel like subjecting you all to that, so I'm not gonna. But if you want to go out there and look online, I'll repost it. But I will say this: less and less Americans are hooking up and shacking up. Whether that's because of the culture, are we just fried out from everything that happened in the early 2000s and 2010s, online culture, hookup culture, and we're just fried out? Have we gotten rid of the institution that is a marriage between a man and a woman, and we don't care? Or is it the Me Too movement, where men just are simply saying, I'm out. It's not worth it for me to sit there and try to have a relationship with a woman, because all she has to say is me too. And the next thing you know, his life is ruined. That argument is made out there over and over again. You can go to all different podcasts. There's a really good one called Whatever Podcast. Get ready to hear some crazy language, but you will see how culture has descended into this left-wing cacophony of just chaos and madness, and no rules, no morals, no boundaries. And I genuinely believe children want guidelines. They want boundaries. They want to know what is good and what is not good. And they've watched what has happened specifically since about 2018 onward, and just like, this is just ridiculous. We can't we can't continue going down this road. And I think it's a good thing. You know, as we continue to report the news and report our culture, we'll continue to talk about culture rot. And people can sit there and say whatever they want, whether you want to call it black culture, hood culture, culture rot. People are honestly starting to wake up from it, maybe because it's been shoved down our throats so much, and we know it wasn't good, but we just wanted to keep our heads down, and we didn't want to get labeled as a racist or a thug or whatever. So we just let it go. It doesn't bother me. But it's affecting all of America now. I mean, there are some places that say that they would never fly an American flag in front of their house. Yet they enjoy all the rights, liberties, and goodies that the country of the United States of America provides to them. These pro-Palestine kids running around with their scarves on and the flags, you know, I would just love to do an experiment where we just load them all up onto a C-5A or C-5M Galaxy, fly them over to Palestine, or not Palestine, but to Gaza, drop them off, and let them do their shouts and see where that gets them. You know, I can remember this argument being had back when I was in college, the argument of virtue signaling. Some would say it's live action role playing, where it's all great to be out there, to be seen, to be going around protesting. Yay, look at me, I'm protesting, yay. But them not actually understanding the real gravity of the situation or the circumstances around of which they're protesting. And frankly, the liberal arts colleges of America and around the world have been first in line to make people a lot less informed about important issues around the world, whether that be the Israeli-Palestine issue, whether it be Russia-Ukraine, China-Taiwan. You can go round and round. Speaking of different countries with conflict, the legacy media will not continue to report on this reality that President Trump has gone ahead and stopped or concluded conflict in Azerbaijan and Armenia, Cambodia and Thailand, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Congo, India and Pakistan, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Serbia and Kosovo. They haven't done anything about that. They haven't reported it, but they should. You're listening to Andrew Gosser's show on 103.9. We will be right back. Hey, you there?
What's up, Andrew?
Hey, how's it going, my man?
It's all right, man. I'm going to piggyback on Clay this morning and dovetail it into what you're talking about.
Is all right? Get you back right after the commercial break, all right?
That'd be perfect.
Awesome, dude. Just hang in there.
All right, buddy.
Earlier today, about 2:30, the car thermometer is at 99 degrees. The thermometer inside the garage was 82. That's what it's been around 50 years. Yeah, ForkandDoors.com. ForkandDoors.com. Social Security belongs to you. You work hard and pay into it. So it's only fair for you to expect to get the money you earn to help cover living expenses and bills, and not for politicians to use as a shooting range. That's why AARP is fighting
I haven't had a chance to read this yet. Where's your article?
At AARP.org.
Oh, you're talking about you talking to me, Andrew?
Oh, there you are. Yep, I see it. My goodness, that's a big article. I got a caller who's on hold, and then
I'll just listen in.
Yep, but I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna. There we go.
Did you get my
Bio? Yep.
Okay.
help. Hey, y'all, I'm Morgan at Women's Wellness of Mississippi. At Women's Wellness of Mississippi, we bring it all together. Hormone therapy, medical weight loss, and the latest, greatest aesthetic treatments like facials, lasers, Botox, and so much more. This is where wellness and beauty meet so that you can feel amazing inside and out. At Women's Wellness of Mississippi, the best version of you is waiting right around the corner.
My name is Terry Parkinson. I'm with the Madison County Co-op in Canton. We're about a block southeast of the square. It's the deer time of year. We've got food plot seed from BWI, J&J Bagging, Bookbusters out of Louisiana, and Kelly Seed out of Alabama. We've got all the attractants, ryegrass, we got clovers. We sell a lot of sportsman condos, the game cams, just about anything you're going to want. Madison County Co-op in Canton is low or lower than most of our competitors.
Hey, this is Travis with Rapid Oil Change, the leader in fast service and fleet account maintenance for over 40 years. Providing routine maintenance for most makes and models, keeping downtime to a minimum. We accept most local and national fleet accounts. Can't see at night? Headlights faded? Check out our newest service, the Bright Line Headlight Restore Kit by Mighty Automotive. Available now. Keep your vehicle ready for the road ahead and drive hard with Casserole Edge. Open 6 days a week with 6 locations to serve. Visit us online for specials at oilchangems.com.
Tools, paint, mowers, equipment parts, service, and rentals are all under one roof at Hometown Hardware in Flora. Hometown Hardware has what you need and professional staff to steer you in the right direction. Hometown Hardware carries top brands like Hustler, Steel, and Milwaukee. Hometown Hardware even has a full lumber yard, paint matching, pool water testing, propane filling, key cutting, and much more. Hometown Hardware, Highway 49 in Flora.
Efficient and trouble-free payroll processing is crucial to a business's success, and a lot of businesses are struggling with it. PeopleLease, a local payroll provider, not only offers top-of-the-line software, but also provides on-demand payroll support services. With PeopleLease, you're never on your own at every step of your payroll process. PeopleLease has the expertise in managing payroll challenges and will work hard to understand your business and employees. That's what makes PeopleLease the perfect choice for you and your business. Learn more online at peoplelease.com.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are back on the Andrew Gosser Show. Caller, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
Have at it. Roll right into what you need to say.
Man, I was going to roll off what Clay mentioned this morning and kind of dovetail it with you. He was asking about what we needed to do to fix the perpetual mindset in the inner city. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We need to bring back the draft. We need to bring back the draft. Now, we could tweak it a little bit. The draft for males would be mandatory, 2 years, some branch of the military. Now, their draw now is, hey, you come on into the military, we give you college money. Well, as we know, college is not for everybody.
Nope.
So offer the same thing to females. This time, put it in the form of, say, for example, a 401k or some type of HVAC, welding, some type of a trade that they can learn. So when they came out of the military, they are employable, they are disciplined, they are regimented, and they are ready to go to work. If you would do that, you would break this cycle because people then are purpose driven. And one thing that they've got to have, of course, is the discipline that the military provides. Having been raised by a United States Marine, whether I like it or not, I got that aspect of the military.
Yep. You want to know what's really interesting is the U.S. Department of Labor just 1 hour ago came out with this. Trade school enrollment for young adults is on the rise nationwide. In fact, 1 of 3 adults recommends trade school over a 4-year university to high school grads. And that's exactly what you're saying, brother.
Well, Mike Rowe, I saw him the other day, and the military was talking to him about the number of electricians and welders that they needed just to simply maintain the fleet and the material. That's what won World War II. It was not always our fighting forces. It was the ability to make stuff very quickly.
Yeah.
Go ahead. The industrial machine that we had was much greater and had a greater capacity for production than the military did for Germany, even though their military was also very, very well supported by manufacturing. The problem was we were dropping bombs on a lot of their stuff. And we were not being bombed. So, yeah, we need that back, and I'm certainly glad, because you got to understand, if you go to school and you are a dentist and you have someone with a toothache Friday night, he's got to wait till Monday to see you. But I tell you what, partner, your pipes bust, that plumber will come out on the weekend. You're going to pay for it, but he's coming.
Yep.
And when you want him, you're talking about a lucrative business. Is those things you just mentioned: welding, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. Because all the guys that are doing it now are old people. They're old, dude. Nobody's doing that anymore, and they're running out of guys. So that's good news.
Yep, it really is. And what's really funny with all of this is that we are getting older, and these young people, all they want to do is be influencers and social media stars, and just not everybody can do that. And there was a gluttony of it because it was a new space that was created by YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. But now people are having to go back to work, and you've absolutely nailed it on the head, dude. I'll give you the last word.
Well, it was funny because you and I have met and talked. I taught science, and we talk about physical and chemical changes.
Yep.
And when I mentioned the fact that you could change a block of wood by using sandpaper from a physical change, I've got one student that raised his hand and says, "What's sandpaper?"
My goodness gracious, Lord have mercy on us all. Brother, thanks for the call.
Hi, man.
Take care. And what I want to say to this is this just goes to show you the level of listener at WYAB. We're ahead of the curve. We're completely ahead of the game. We are seeing things well before mainstream society actually sees it. And we've got to continue to go out there and educate the masses. And that's like one of the great goals of this program, which I keep talking about all the time. And I'll continue to talk about it, is that we have to be able to get into these debates with these people, not the crazy left, because you're never going to convince something like that, but you will be able to convince those of us who are in the middle and who are our center right, and say, look, this is why we believe that we need to have a draft. This is why we believe we need to have trade schools being promoted above college. And I'm telling you what, not everybody can be a rocket scientist, engineer, or future astronaut. Not everybody can be a PhD lawyer, but we're going to need a lot of plumbers and a lot of electricians, and it's going to continue to be that way. Look, you're listening to the Andrew Gossip Show on 103.9. We're at the top of our break, and when we get back, it's going to be Mr. Buck Torsk.
It was good of you to compliment your.
Yes, yes, you are. You are locked, loaded, ready for launch in hour 2 of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. It is Monday, the 18th of August, and across from me is my good friend, retired Navy Chief Buck Torsk, and we're going to get into a bunch of stuff. But before we do, we have to talk about we're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on that social media platform that begins with a F, but we don't like to say the name because they censor the heck out of everybody. And we also listen or streaming live at WYAB.com, the mothership. As you know, our job here is always to equip the saints, and that's what we're going to do this hour in the show. And I just want to say this again because I really feel it's important. Know this, my brothers and sisters, let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Love that from James. Brother Buck, Chief, sir, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Andrew.
I
appreciate you having me here.
You know, we've known each other for a while now. And when we thought about you coming in for an interview, I'm like, this is going to be great. You're not necessarily from the Hinds County area. You're out in Jones County, and you've got a lot of real life practical experiences that you can give the listening audience who may not have a perspective that you do. So really quickly, just to get people to know you, can you tell me about, where you grew up, your military career, and then what brought you to Mississippi?
Long story, so I'll try and keep it as short as I can.
Yep.
Okay, I came to Mississippi in 2013, late 2013. And I came down, I was staying in Nashville with my daughter at the time, but I can't come out this direction from the Northwest. I lived in Olympia, Washington, sort of the belly of the beast.
Yep.
Now, my background is that I'm from Los Angeles, California. Grew up there, went to school there. And when I was 17, I enlisted in the Navy. And I call that my formative years because as a boy sailor, you're pretty malleable and you learn a lot of different things and you take on a lot of lessons as you grow. So I got here. I spent about 21 and a half years inside the Navy, and I was an aviation structures mechanic, made multiple deployments, in fact, 9 deployments throughout that period of time with some independent detachments in other places. I served aboard numerous aircraft carriers, worked mostly on the flight deck. As a structures mechanic, I came out of the shop and worked flight deck operations.
Yep.
And then I went fixed wing aviation and was ashore with Antarctic Devron 6, and we deployed into Antarctica. I did that 3 times with them.
Wow, 3 years.
Yeah, Operation Deep Freeze, was a long-running program, still in existence, but we've been supplanted now by a U.S. Air Force Guard unit.
Yep.
And we operated the LC-130 ski-equipped Hercules transport.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I ended up retiring from a patrol squadron operating the P-3 Charlie Orion, doing anti-submarine and maritime patrol missions. And post-Navy, I did quite a few different things, including a stint as an operations director for a national company that provided services and equipment to the armed forces during this past war that we just terminated in Afghanistan. And so I got a chance to broaden my understanding of the military by working closely with the Air Force and the Army and the Marine Corps. And naturally, I picked up a little bit of Army in that because I'd have to go out and do fieldings and such. I'm married. I'm married to my wife, Barbara Kay. I've got numerous grandchildren.
That's
great
awesome.
grandchildren as well. So we've been around a while. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 71 years old. And when I came to Mississippi, uh, my political life kind of took off here. I'd really always been interested and concerned with events and the end product of the events, how it was impacting my society, what I valued. And eventually, I found myself on the road as an RVer with my wife traveling around. And no matter where we went, we found people who would say, well, somebody's got to do something. And, that kind of stuck in my head.
Yep.
Well, in April of 2021, I had written several letters to the editor about some narratives inside the Laurel Leader Call newspaper.
Mhm.
Now, the Laurel Leader Call is an independent newspaper owned by a fellow by the name of Jim Segelski. He runs Gin Creek Publishing. And in that, he gave me a call about that and asked me to come in and speak with him. He was going to buy me a beer. And I said, oh, I'll always go for a free beer.
Yep.
Well, before he even got the beer on the table, he said, well, the truth is I asked you to come down here and I'm wondering, would you like to write a column? And I'm not a writer. In fact, I'm actually an 8th grade dropout, but I was able to master a little bit on the language over my life.
Yep.
And so I said, okay, I'll take that. And so in April, my first column appeared in the newspaper and it was called How to Be a Hero. And I referenced call to duty and oath and what I had learned in the Navy. And one of the greatest lessons I ever got was when I was getting my butt chewed over non-performance or poor performance. I had an old chief address me, took me aside, and it was the first time I had ever heard the phrase public trust. And he defined for me that nothing I was doing was for me anymore. And that I had taken on an oath to serve the people of the country, and that nothing I worked with, the clothes I wore, the rack I slept in, the tools in my hand, especially the airplane and the assets of the Navy, they weren't mine.
Mm-mm.
And these people were counting on me to do my very best. They were never going to meet me. They didn't have to expect anything but my best, and they had the right to expect it. And so I was kind of angry about that, being a hot shot like I was. And I thought about it, though, and I found that over my career, I adopted that as a philosophy for my efforts. And I tried to share that with others as I grew into leadership. And, it's kind of difficult because, as you know, you were in the Navy, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. As you know, from being in the Navy, when you're a technician or a mechanic, it's kind of an abstract, because the end product is, for an aviation guy, the dude driving the airplane, and he's going to put the weapons on target.
Yep.
And he's the guy taking the risks. And you have to instill in the people how important they are to success in a mission. Well, so I talked about that, and I talked about how in the end, over my life, I'd met many heroes who had taken the oath, and they expected nothing back. Nothing. There was no expectation of adulation or monetary success, nothing. And that not doing your duty is often because you're fearful, right? And I said that all of these men were afraid. All of these people had fear, but they overcame it. And I said that to my readers that you can be a hero too. And I decided, well, somebody can do something. I'm somebody, and by God, I'm going to do it.
Yep. And that's the reason I wanted to go through that, Buck, was because it doesn't matter whether you went through the militaries in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Even today, there's still those leadership crumbs that just mold us and set us on a path. And I've got a very similar story where I had a senior chief. I was taking responsibility for painting the flight line very close to where your old squadron was. In fact, when I was 2 years old, you were sailing on the ship I would be sailing on 18 and 19 years later. But that's neither here nor there. But the thing is he's like, why don't you paint the whole flight line? The whole flight line for the F-14 squadrons at NAS Oceana. That's hangar 1, 2, 3. That's a lot. And I'm like, I don't want that responsibility. And Senior Chief Skelton pulls me up by my dungarees, and he's got that cigarette coffee breath, which was just heinous.
It's over here.
Yeah. and he goes, I never want to hear you not say, I don't want that responsibility. And that weekend, me and 3 of my young airmen, we painted the entire F-14 flight line, VF-101, VF-143. So we just went up, and we didn't have to do it, but we did it, right? And I think it's there's that one lesson that we can all go back to in our life where, hey, that's going to start setting us going down a path. And what's kind of worked for you and it's kind of worked for me is I took all those lessons learned from the military, both the Navy as an enlisted man and then switching to the Air Force. And that's a unique story in and of itself. The Air Force got me all flying on an AWACS, and then they're like, we're going to send you to the Nimitz for a few months and you just go work this out. So it was really interesting to go back there as an Air Force officer and see all of my old enlisted bubbas who are now in the fighter squadron on Nimitz. It was great. But we can take those lessons learned and apply them to our life past the military. And I think that's what you've done with your column and your article out in Jones County, and also some of the things that you've built up. And, really quickly, why don't you talk a little bit more about your articles? And then when we get back, I want to talk about Free State and then some of the other organizing that you've done.
Well, like everything else, everything grows and evolves as you get to do things. And I determined early on that first I'm a gut guy. And I'm just like everybody else. I mean, I have a life to live, and it goes beyond what political events are around me or social events and cultural events, because who's got time for all of that all the time? I mean, I have family considerations. I've got my church life. I've got all those other things, but I try to stay informed, and I do it in a broad way. I listen to a lot of radio because I enjoy radio probably more than any other media because there's a lot of interaction. I also watch the big network shows, ABC, NBC, CBS, and the cable networks as well. Of course, they talk about balance. And so finding balance is difficult. The other is I don't want to find myself cubbyholed to where I've become indoctrinated only by being on one side or the other. However, after many years of paying attention, I prefer, of course, finding things that meld with my own sense of values. And I've found that we have some problems in media as far as the messaging goes. And that means that the people that have values share them like I do, they need a voice. And so writing my columns, I pay attention to, the big deal, the state deals, the things at the local level, especially I got interested in education. And so I try and outline those in a general fashion, but I do it not so much by being an opinion guy with a lot of facts and figures. I do it more in a storyline, talking about my own experiences and how these things impact me and my own observations. And so, for instance, education. Well, recently, this state has just eliminated the civics and history portion of the graduation exam, right? Or I think that it has another name, but bottom line is that they're going to continue to teach history for what value that has if there's no incentive for the student to be evaluated at the end with it. And we have lost a lot of understanding of why the nation exists and how it has come to be the greatest nation on earth. And so that bothered me, but I digress a little bit because, well, I can go on when you have an opportunity.
Listen, we're talking to my good friend, retired Navy Chief Buck Torsk. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Before we get back with Chief Buck, I want to talk about my friend Stephen Arrington and his company Elite Custom Construction LLC. They redo kitchens. They do outstanding custom cabinetry and millwork, whether you're redoing your interior kitchen, whether it's a new home build or a remodel, or whether you want to build an outdoor kitchen and deck. Go visit my friend Stephen Arrington at Elite Custom Construction. They're at 608 El Dorado Road in Pearl, Mississippi, and you can give them a call at 601-927-0552, or you can look them up online at elitecustomconstruction.net. Brother Buck, we were just getting back from the break, and we were like, okay, we've got a great foundation of where you've been and what your leadership philosophy is and your articles. What kind of brought you into the political spectrum per se, with as far as Free State's concerned, and what you started wanting to build out there in Jones County?
Well, Free State Citizens Action Union was my idea to try and coalesce like minds to take action about issues in government. Moreover, it was to get the people in front of the elected officials, meaning that most elected officials don't pay much attention to the people who elect them. Sitting out there, they make decisions without actually consulting with the body of the people in society around them. And that's because we grant them that authority, thinking they're going to make the best decisions they can, but oftentimes they don't really get the straight dope about people. So the intent was to organize a body of people that would go to city council meetings, county board of supervisor meetings, school board meetings, the economic development authority, for these things that were happening that were being unseen by everyone. But the bigger thing was to have the face of the public there. So we get started with this, and of course we end up all over the map with issues. There's national elections we're interested in, and so we're interested in state elections and local elections and voting. And Free State started out as an idea. I planted some flyers. I started handing out flyers on the street in Laurel. I went out to the gun show. I drifted around, left those things in restaurants, just little yellow flyers, trying to recruit people essentially. So the first meeting I scheduled, I ended up with 5 people total there. There was my wife, me, and 3 others. The next meeting I scheduled for the following week. And in that meeting, we had 15 people, and we grew. And we continued to grow. And in that, it was like, how are we going to do this sort of thing and still outline the mission? How are we going to do it? We would organize, we would set up committees, because I had figured the left is so successful in their organizing that we needed to get to a point where we were conducting direct action, meaning we actually would do the things that we would see the left do, but in a nonviolent way, of course. And it's really amazing how the left does it, because they are truly, they operate like, I don't mean to besmirch the Marines, but they act like well-trained Marine recruits and privates and lance corporals. They just go out and they just forward march and they just roll, where it just seems to me on the conservative side, we are taking in all this information and kind of looking at it. But when it comes time to forward march, we're not out there like well, that's a fact. And the reason for that, of course, is I think is simply an attitudinal, and it's attitudinal because you see yourself as this certain kind of person. You make an assumption that those around you agree with you, but you don't hear it often. And I think the major attraction, because my demographic inside Free State was not young people. I had a lot of mature folks, and they love hearing that they're not alone. People don't want to be alone, because we're not. Nationally, I think we've proven that. Where we fail, though, is to unite in effort. And of course, I don't know what really drives that, other than, well, I really don't have time, or I've got to go take care of the grandkids, or I've got to mow the lawn, or whatever the case may be, or I have a job, right? And so finding that extra time is subsidiary to anything else, but it calls it calls to mind that you have to make time for things that matter to you, even if it's not all the time. It has to be sometime. That's what I talk about being a hero. When I talk about fear, it's fear of letting something else go, or being maligned by your neighbor, or not getting along at a cocktail party, or whatever the case may be. You don't open up about your politics. And of course, in America, we were all taught don't talk politics and religion. And I've written in my columns before that I think those are two failures on the part of the good Americans, because politics is only the sales tool for ideas. And it's very important for us all to have an idea. When I talk about elected officials and getting in front of them, well, we have a terrible voting record in Mississippi. Our turnout is horrific. And so even these people who agree with me and you and others on the conservative side, they're inert. And they're inert, I guess, presuming somebody else is going to take care of it. And that's not always the case, because it's up to us. So to be a hero is sometimes it only takes going to the ballot box. But you have to go to the ballot box understanding who you are voting for. And I think we're unsuccessful in that for the most part in Mississippi too. And I can talk to that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is where I've really looked at it from, whether it was being a precinct delegate in Mississippi, whether it was being a precinct committeeman in Illinois, whether it was being a county supervisor in Illinois, or trying to do something here in Mississippi. I always tried to focus locally on the small bite first,
Right.
instead of getting the whole enchilada. And in me focusing on that ended up allowing me to be electoral college voter for Trump in 2016. I just worked hard.
Right.
And the thing is people get so discouraged because we see everything that's on MS now, because it's not MSNBC
Right.
anymore. We see things on CNN, and we just get so demoralized, and we don't focus on the radical local things that can actually have a really big impact.
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually, your influence on Free State was at your one meeting.
Yep.
And we discussed your tactic of being involved at your voting precinct level. And of course, we try to encourage the members of that group to do that. Sadly, I know that I did. And what I did was we had candidates running. There was Chris McDaniel running for state Senate.
Yep.
Or pardon me,
No, he was running for lieutenant governor.
for lieutenant governor. That's right. And then Don Hartness, who just recently won his primary this go around against Robinson and the state Senate. And I wanted them elected. And I thought, well, what can I do? So I went to my house, and again, you've got to make time. I wrote a letter to my fellow precinct voters.
That's so
I wrote, I guess, several hundred, I mean, what you can afford, because you got to buy paper, you got to take the time to sit down and get it printed, stamped and enveloped, and I hand address those and send them out.
Buck, real quick, just make sure if you're going to do a precinct letter, make sure you buy the envelopes that you peel out of the sticker,
Right.
because
I
you don't
did
want to
that.
be licking.
I did that. Yeah, I bought those envelopes.
Keep going.
And so anyway, then that was my effort, because I thought it was important if I could get why I wanted these people elected, because based on their philosophy and how they were articulating what they intended to do up in Jackson, I thought that was vital.
Yep.
But again, voter turnout was a big deal. Of course, McDaniel, I'm going to say that I really have valued. I actually know Senator McDaniel, been to his house, smoked a cigar, the whole works,
Yep.
But in Jackson, that man was vilified by his own party.
Yep.
And, they even named him Captain America, because he is pro-America, and he knows why he's pro-America, and he's able to do that. And I always thought of him as the most effective, ineffective politician I've met in anywhere, because he was effective in that he stood his ground, spoke for his votership, the people in his community, yet it fell on deaf ears, because he fell to the machinery that exists in Jackson. And anybody who thinks there's not a swamp and people are up to their necks in it there, you're mistaken. And Hoseman is a good example. So anyhow, and of course, Don is just a good guy.
Yep.
And I'm really hoping, and I think I've been listening to McDaniel. He has his own podcast Chris McDaniel's America.
Yep.
And I've been reading some of the things he's writing, and I just get the sense that he's going to reintroduce himself to the public and want to be in service to us again. And I really hope for that. So I try to influence people that way. Free State, of course, we got involved in candidate debates and free, what do you call them? Town halls.
Yep.
And we also did a lot with finding out what's going on in the school libraries, because people were concerned about the books and access to those. And we've discovered lots of things.
Hold that thought on the school libraries and everything. We got to take a commercial
You
break.
bet.
You're listening to Chief Buck Torsk on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. It's the dulcet tones of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. I'm here with retired Navy Chief Petty Officer Buck Torsk, and we've been talking local politics. And one of the things that I want to get right back into are these school board races and the local locality of it all, and how you can have a much bigger impact locally than you can necessarily going for like a state job. And some of the challenges that you found in Jones County that maybe some of the people out here are experiencing, whether it be Rankin, Hines, etc.
So one of the things that we really found that was a problem, of course, was the degree of emphasis on quality education. Right there, when I say quality education, quality is a word that gets tossed around a lot. What's qualitative? That's feel good. What we really want is you want a quantitative result that comes from whatever qualitative measures are in there. A lot of the programs that have put in place, these programs like social emotional learning and such, cost the school board. I know it costs the Jones County School Board $56,000 a year to implement a program that's not mandated, but it's something that's kind of forced on them through the NEA and all of that, and so they accept it.
Social emotional education,
social emotional learning, which is basically critical race theory light, and it tends to separate people by their constructs coming from their home life and how they're involved. And so little Janie, she gets extra attention because, mom doesn't work or they're impoverished or, there's drug addiction. And so the teachers end up focusing on those people's problems in order to improve their education, right? Their ability to retain knowledge. But when you ask the boards, okay, well, show me the quantitative improvement for little Janie, there is nothing. See, it's a feel good because, everybody wants to feel good about doing something nice for another. Of course, everybody, I don't know anyone in my upbringing or in my entire existence that hasn't had trauma or some awful event or something that hurts them emotionally. And turning teachers into sociologists and counselors, well, in a way, I suppose they fill a niche in that, but that's not their focus. It should be the content and the curriculum and the lessons that they teach, because you have to put responsibility on a student to learn, even if it's difficult for them to learn. Now, education matters to me because I should have had one. I had every opportunity. My father was a former English teacher at Eastern Montana State College in Billings at one point, post World War II. And interesting story about education is I would write him letters, and I would get letters home or back from home, corrected in red. And on one side was my chicken scratch, which of course we taught cursive when I went to school, but on his side, it looked like calligraphy, and it was beautifully written. It was like artwork. But he taught me at least the construct of a sentence, even if I'm great on run-on sentences. In fact, I'm good on verbose speech. Another word that I learned when verbose. But we come to these issues in the school about, if you go to the website for given your county website, you can go there and you say, okay, what are they using as a history text? Okay, well, the state has got adopted textbooks. Well, in my own Jones County, I go to their website. I don't know what the history teacher is using as a text. What do I know? So I have to go to the adopted books and presume I'll look at all of them. For instance, I went to one that's used, and I don't even know if it's used in my county schools, by the National Geographic, called Through the Lens. Right.
Wow.
And when you go there, and I always liked National Geographic growing up, I liked the pictures, and it was always fun with the antelopes killing things. But antelopes being killed, excuse me.
Lions and tigers out there.
And so I go to this thing and I find what I would deem to be, politically correct and woke verbiage in how they present information about history. Well, these things concern me, and they should concern all parents, because history is real, whether we like it or not, and what occurred or not. And here we've seemed to gotten to a place where we want to negate the lessons we learned. You didn't get to today by ignoring yesterday. In fact, some of the good things that came in this country came from some awful realities. So, we're not a nation that ever promised to be a perfect union. We are always trying to become a perfect union. And so this was the founders' guidance for us, because who's the only perfect human that ever existed? And that was Jesus Christ. None of us are going to be there. So, of course, books are important. So Free State looked at the books in the libraries. We found some of them that are very questionable, and we were concerned about those. And by golly, you think that they would answer that question at a meeting, but they don't. Hey, what are you going to do about these books? Or are those there? And they don't know. See, we go to a meeting, introduce ourselves, tell them what we're about. We have a letter and outlines who we are and what we're about, and we speak to them. Well, I ended up going to them, and I gave them a 4-page package of, first off, we're not here adversarially. We're here to work with you. You're our elected officials. And presuming these 5 elected people on the school board are going to respond because we're concerned citizens. But that didn't happen. And even follow-on letters never get responded to. Well, I go into this thinking to myself, I need to take part in the process because we are a political body, So I go and I look at this thing and I start reading up on policies. And essentially what I discovered is that the school boards, even though at the county level, I think there's only one county in the state that doesn't elect the school board, the county schools, which are different than city schools and such. But we elect a 5-person school board. They go there. They have districts that they represent. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Representative government. That's what we're about. But that school board then turns around, and since a certain period, I think it was 1984, they hire their school board superintendents.
Yep.
And he, in turn, becomes the de facto CEO of the people we elected. Yep. He's their boss. And I think it's supposed to be the other way around. So I ran for school board, right? And I was, we'll call myself a 1/3 successful. But I went into that with a 5-point plan because, a lot of people think we don't have answers. Well, we do. But our answers are structural. There's a structural problem inside Mississippi. And that is that up at the top, the school board, the MDE, Mississippi Department of Education, are appointees. They're political appointees. And you would presume they're appointed, and we've got a trifecta up there in Jackson, from the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House. But we know nothing truly about these appointees. It's usually political favoritism, cronyism, reward, just like you think about ambassadors to different nations from the president. And so you don't know what their philosophy is. And when you go to elect somebody, like I've just stressed a little while ago, it's good to know what they think. In fact, it's inherent on you to get them to answer questions. But they're unapproachable. You can't reach them. And there seems to be very little tie between our legislative body, the Senate, and our legislature, the representatives, and the school board. And how do they oversee these people? Now, I'm not speaking in detail because the truth is detail's hard to find in this. But as far as I can tell, the only real tie is when they go to the legislature and ask for money.
And the thing about it is, and this is how I looked at it as I was watching you run, and also as I watched Lynette Courtney run in Rankin County, and forgive me, I forget your name, in Hinds County, but there was another person who ran. They would sit there and they would go out and they would meet the constituents, and the constituents that they were able to interact with and build rapport with, they did well with. But it was the machine on the outside, this educational political machine, that's pushing the wokeism, that's doing more teaching by feeling and then by facts and science and scientific method, observable science. They're pushing away from that. And you just have a great story about how you've done all this and you've worked through all of this. And
I'd like to say I was successful.
Well, the thing is that sometimes, people run for office, they make it. Sometimes they run for office, they don't make it. Abraham Lincoln's a perfect example of that. Go. Right. So that's why I wanted to have you on here. Look, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll wrap up the hour. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back for the final segment of the Andrew Gosser Show. The 2 hours went by just like that, and this hour with Buck has been incredibly quick. Really appreciate Buck coming in today, all the way out from Jones County, to talk about his life, his story, and his political experiences, not just here in Mississippi, but everything that's come up to that point. Buck, we were talking about the education system, and you were talking a little bit about the standards of what you were going through. I just wanted you to have a two quick minutes to kind of wrap it up.
Okay, so I get to this thing and I go up there and I start. First thing I did is there was a curriculum rewrite at the state level, so they had an open period, a forum for citizens who were interested, because you got a chance to review this proposed changes. The first thing that hit me was that they're teaching that America is a representative democracy. And a democracy is a good, feel-good word. It doesn't mean anything in the premise of our Constitution. It's never mentioned. We're a representative republic, and it's a substantial difference. It's not just semantics, but that's how they go into it. And this feel-good word democracy, you keep hearing it bandied about. I wanted that gone. That was an issue. So I show up, 400 people. We don't get an opportunity to actually have any give and take, because nobody from the MDE, this appointed body, shows up for this. They send their lawyer and some admin people, and we get told it's not a give and take. So that was useless. So that really irked me. So I go back and I think to myself, well, what can I do? And so I thought the back to basics approach is really important. And first, you have to understand, I was banking on Trump getting elected and the Department of Education being eliminated, because it's nothing but leftists.
Yep.
Okay. Because our history isn't taught properly. That means we don't perceive ourselves as we should. Okay. And the young people need to have that. They have to have a
They're craving for it right
They
now.
are craving it. Absolutely. So one of the big deals is how they teach civics and how they teach history. And of course, U.S. history, I talked about how that's being eliminated from the final exam, basically set up. But one of my premises for running for the school board was to bring that back, to emphasize it, and to have students be required to take a U.S. citizenship test before graduation, even if it's only adopted at the county level.
Yep.
It has to be a requirement, because there is no point if you don't need to retain anything if you don't have to prove that you have workable knowledge of it. And then the other was access and transparency by the boards, because I'm tired of being a citizen that can't get an answer. And it might surprise people. We elect people, and there is no mandate for your elected officials to communicate with you. You have to struggle to do it. Ordinarily, struggle means stroke a check.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's wrong, because there are issues that individual constituents have to get resolved, and they can only be done by these elected officials, but they look for every way to avoid you, except when they want to sell themselves as a candidate. So again, that's about, if you go to candidate forums, you have to ask them questions if you get the opportunity, and you have to understand, you have to go to that with your own philosophy of what you expect and want that mirrored. That's the thing. So politicians are just a tool for us. They're not our leaders. I'm going to make that clear. They are leaders inside the bodies we elect them to, but they're not our leaders. And if we start calling them leaders, they're going to believe they are, and they're going to lead us around by the nose. And that's not how this is structured. Anyway, I just want to encourage everybody to be a hero. That's all I want to say. You can do it. Yeah, you can't do it all the time, but when you can, get out there. Show them who you are. Tell them what you want, and don't back down. Don't let your neighbors make you fearful.
Nope. And Buck, that is what I was hoping we would get to in this interview, and we did. We got there in the end. And listen, everybody, whether you decide to run for local office or just be more involved in local office, you need to be out there, because if you're not, the system is just going to run away farther and farther. And it's not so far gone that we can't pull it back, but it's going to take a concerted effort at the local level, not at even the state level or the federal level, that you've got one vote for congressman and one vote for each senator. We can get there, but we got to start locally. And Buck, you've been an awesome champion to show people, hey, this is how it's done. It doesn't work every time, but if you put the pieces in place, you can end up getting there in the end. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. You've been listening to Chief Buck Torsk, retired United States Navy, and we'll be back in another 46 hours, everybody. Be blessed.
Well, I don't know.